Hi, everyone. Today it's my turn to do the gospel reflection from the Mass we had this morning. And I have to tell you before I start, it's not a very happy reading, but it comes from Luke's Gospel, chapter 21, and their verses 12 through 19. So let's hear it. Jesus said to the crowd, "They will seize and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and to the prisons. They will have you led before kings and governors because of my name. It will lead to your giving testimony. Remember, you are not to prepare your defense beforehand, for I myself shall give you a wisdom in speaking that all your adversaries will be powerless to resist or refute. You will even be handed over by parents, brothers, sisters, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair on your head will be destroyed. By your perseverance, you will secure your lives." I told you, it's not a very happy reading. But as we open up this gospel passage today, it might be helpful for us to remember something we learned from the readings over the last two Sundays. 2 weeks ago, the gospel and the first reading, and last Sunday, the first reading, were written in a technical language style of the Bible called apocalyptic. This language is usually in a narrative form. It's telling us something. It is often pessimistic about the present and presents final events as though they're about to happen right now. So it's a warning and a calling for us to be attentive, to watch out. And for that reason, that kind of biblical language, it speaks to every generation. Now, 2 weeks ago, Mark used this in his gospel because the Christians living in Rome and in Jerusalem were seeing a disturbing change in the world around them. His point was this: the world that God created does not participate in the chaos you see all around you. Instead, it rests in God's arms. So don't be a part of the rude and vulgar behavior. We're hearing that same language style in the gospel reading today, but this time it's coming from Luke's gospel, and Jesus is speaking about the end times. While these are striking images that can make us feel uncomfortable, we must learn how to read them, to interpret them. And so, 2 weeks ago, when Mark told us that Jesus predicted stars falling from the sky and other calamities, Jesus was telling us, when you see unjust human institutions crumbling, well, that's good. Let them fall. It's not the end of the world, as Hollywood interprets it for us. It's the end of a world built upon deception, narcissism, audacity, and superstition. It must come crashing down because there's another world that has been here all along. It's the true world, created by the Father and hidden behind the things that scream out at us, the things that seem so obvious. And we who have eyes to see it should rejoice, because we have been given a glimpse of the kingdom that is coming. These days, we're hearing fewer Christians share their faith. In the gospel today, Jesus speaks of the future and says, "They will seize and persecute you. They will hand you over to the synagogues and to prisons. They will have you led before kings and governors because of my name." It sounds pretty frightening, but notice how that paragraph concludes. Jesus says, it will lead to you giving testimony, sharing your reasons for believing. Now, on November 23rd, in our church, we remembered a person whose name is, we call him Blessed Miguel, Pro. He was a Jesuit priest who ministered in Mexico during the time of the Cristero War. The President of Mexico decreed that Catholic priests could not wear their clothing that identified them as priests. He also decreed that priests could not minister to their people in public. Now, Father Miguel found creative ways to keep the faith alive and to minister to God's people. He offered Mass for them in their homes. On one occasion, he dressed like a mechanic and went to the station where taxis are and gave a retreat for taxi drivers. He did many things like this. Eventually, the authorities found out and falsely accused him of attempting to assassinate the president. He was taken out and shot by a firing squad without a trial. Before his execution, he was given his last request, and he knelt on the ground and prayed. That was his last request. With the crucifix in one hand and the rosary in the other, he stood without a blindfold and faced his executioners. He forgave them, and then he prayed for them. Then he raised his hands so that he looked like Jesus on the cross, and he said, "Viva Cristo Rey! Long live Christ the King!" And then they murdered him. Photographs of his execution were published in the newspapers, and the president hoped that this would finally remove the Catholic faith from Mexico. But it had the opposite effect. 40,000 people accompanied Father Miguel's coffin in procession. Another 20,000 were at the cemetery waiting to receive Father Miguel's coffin. He died on November 23rd, and the year was 1927. So you see, this isn't something that happened long ago and far away. The persecution is here, and it could be now, not some unknown day in the future. If it could happen in 1927, it could happen now. And that's precisely why we must share our faith. The reasons we have for believing, for loving God, for loving Jesus. Our Lord's words today are really about cause and effect. If we don't talk about Jesus, what he does for us, with us, and in us, then future events may have us defending who we are and what we believe. Sharing our faith does test how much we know. And in order to share our faith, we have to have something to share. We have to know Jesus. And sometimes people who do not know Jesus may feel threatened by our beliefs because they don't understand them. And that's why he said, "You will even be handed over by parents, siblings, relatives, and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name, but not a hair on your head will be destroyed." When Mark wrote his gospel, he said his words were all about the good news of Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God. Sharing our faith is about sharing the good news, and the more we share it, the more of his good news will fill our hearts, the more we will have to share. As I thought about this passage today and sharing our faith, I realized one more thing. Even not speaking about Jesus is saying something about how we feel about him. Now, I'm not suggesting that we go out and strike up conversations with strangers, but opportunities do pop up where we can say a little bit about how our faith helps us. And I'm thinking here about those Thanksgiving and Christmas traditions that are connected to faith and have been handed down through the generations of our families. Those are beautiful things to share. The gospel lesson today is telling us that these are signs of the end of a world built upon deception, narcissism, audacity, and superstition. It must come crashing down because another world has been here all along. It is the real world, hidden behind the things that scream out for our attention. If you look for it, you will see signs of God's kingdom already present, but not yet fully revealed. This is the good news of Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, and what he does for us. Now it's up to us. So let's spread the good news. May God bless you. I'll see you again soon.